do this work is your ego's going to get in the way. Who's experienced an ego getting in the way? Right?
All the time.
Mm-hmm. Now, there is a reason we have an ego, just like there's a reason we have a car. Okay? Now, one of the things that the ego will do is it will wrestle from you the steering wheel every now and again because it feels threatened by the work we're doing. Okay? And it should be threatened by the work we're doing because it is your servant, not the other way around. Okay? It is your servant, not the other way around. So now let's chat a little about some myths about meditation. There it is.
It's not what you think.
Has your experience in the Lamasery been anything like you thought it would be when you first started? Like hands up, right? Like nobody, like you came in here doing this work and you went, I have no idea what to expect, but man, it didn't turn out as I expected. Is that fair? There you go. So it's the same thing about meditation, okay? Meditation is just getting quiet and extricating yourself from identification with your thoughts, but also getting quiet enough to be able to listen. Now, if you can hear, which of you have your ears ringing now? Who's hearing that? Okay, there you go. So one of the things that happens, Deepak Chopra did this years ago in one of his things that when he was here, and he said, "Listen." And so everybody went quiet, and he said, "Listen to people listening." Now, at the beginning of the semester, we all had you look at the candles, and then close your eyes, and then everybody put their hands. Can you still see the candle even with your eyes closed? And can you say the word light? So everybody said the word light, and then now don't use your vocal cords. So now you can see with your eyes closed, you can hear with no sound going, and you can speak without your tongue, okay? So there's a whole bunch of stuff going on. So myths about meditation, it's hard to do. DB talks about sit down, shut up, and get out. Okay? Sit down, shut up, and get out. Is meditation hard to do? Well, if it's a myth, then maybe it isn't hard to do. Who finds meditation hard to do? Yeah. It's very interesting because then we get to experience this law of paradox, don't we? The law of paradox is, there's nothing really inherently difficult about it. All you have to do is sit down and shut up and get quiet, right? However, how often are we completely bamboozled by our thoughts? Right? It's an unbelievable process, right? And what do we do when we start to get carried away with our thoughts? What's the first trick to becoming present? What?
Oh, what to do about it?
Yeah.
It's just to see it.
I just name it, I go thought.
Okay.
I go focus on my breath.
Absolutely. And breathing. Breathing. There's nothing that brings you present faster than just paying attention to your breath. Okay? Just paying attention to your breath. Okay? Okay. Here's another one. Your mind needs to be silent for it to work. And here's what your ego will tell you. Well, you're still thinking, so you're not meditating. I'll throw a wrench in this. Let me throw a wrench in there. Let me throw a stick in your spokes, right? Interesting. Your mind doesn't need to be silent for it to work. However, just as we discover in epilepsy, just before we go to sleep and just before we wake up in the morning, there's that period of time where even though there are thoughts there, you're not paying much attention to them, right? And you have that kind of gap in there, right? There's a saying about finding the space between your thoughts, right? Or finding the space between your breaths, in and out, okay? Does it take years of practice? You know, the studies will show that you start meditating in as little as 5 or 6 weeks, it changes you. So that's pretty quick. And it's also cumulative. When you know how to sit down and get quiet, avenues of communication are opened with you. Okay? We chatted a little about somebody rescuing the king's daughter some time ago in this class, remember? And he rescued the king's daughter, the princess, and brought him back to the king. And the king said, "What would you like?" And he said, "Well, here's what I would like. I would like 1 grain of sand at the first of the month. And then on the second, I want 2 grains of sand, and so on, just for the month." And the king said, "Sure, no problem. Happy to give you a grain of sand, like double it. That's fine," right? What happened at the end of the month, though? It wasn't a grain of sand anymore. How many were there? You think about it. You go, well, 1, 2. How many you think? 1,000? 10,000 maybe?
31 or something like that.
Yeah, trillions. So by the end of the month, the king couldn't pay the grain because that's called geometric growth. Okay? Now, one of the things that happened when Kuthumi was spoken to, and one of the things that we talk about in the Lamasery is we talk about our desire to create a growth of our spiritual connection, our spiritual practices, our tools. We've been given a bunch of tools and we're doing what we can to use the tools in order to expand our state of consciousness. Now, DB talked in his ashram, he talked about doubling your spiritual awareness or your spiritual growth every year. So 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, 128. Okay, so that's a pretty fast growth, right? But when Kuthumi was asked that question, he said, no, not when you are close to the spiritual vortex of being on the path and connected with your elder brothers and sisters. Okay? Once you start to connect, it doesn't go 1, 2, 4, 8. It goes what? 1, 2, 4, 16, 256, 63,400,000, and then goes to billions, 4.3 billion. So that's how powerful it is. And your intellect, and certainly your ego, 1, can't fathom that, but 2, more importantly, is very threatened by that. So just be mindful that when we're doing the work we're doing, it has a great effect, not only on you, but everybody around you. Because as you start to become more and more aware of your soul call, of your awareness of who you are, you start to recognize that you made a deal before this incarnation to be here now. And this is a stunningly powerful time to be here. Stunningly so. Okay? I think it was probably Dieter who said, to meditate for relaxation is kind of like buying a round trip ticket all over the world for air miles only, right? Okay? It is an absolute direct modality of connecting with your soul. Okay? That's what we're here for. We're here to address the third initiation. What's the third initiation? Not my will, but thy will. Ascension is 4th. Okay? And this is to become a soul-infused personality. So we figure out our packaging. We do our push-ups. What are the 3 forms of push-ups? Study, meditation, and service, right? Study, meditation, and service. As opposed to study medication and service, yes.
No, she thought I said medication.
Yes, I know. And now we have, it isn't escapism at all. It's a mode of where you honor yourself and you get quiet enough to listen. And guess what? There's a lot to listen for. There absolutely is a lot to listen for. If you get quiet enough, you can hear. Now, how does the soul communicate, you guys? Through symbols, right? And it communicates through symbols that will mean something to you that won't have the same meaning to you, or you, or you, or you, or you, right? Whatever it is. And so we need to understand a dictionary of symbols. And that's what we're doing currently in our astrology course coming up this weekend, is we'll be teaching you about glyphs and symbols and a variety of things, okay? What's this one say? So you know, generally speaking, that you can't avoid going to the bathroom because you don't have time. Make it so with meditation, right? I can't go to the bathroom right now. Hello? I'll just hold it in until I blow up, right? Like, you can't do that. Now, part of the gift that our elder brothers and sisters have brought to bear here is they're saying, listen, we have something to share with you. There is an enormous spiritual collaboration going on this planet in order to extricate it from the Maya, the glamour, and the illusion, but also to extricate it from the grasp of the DF. Okay? And you're a part of that awakening process. Okay? So, many of you, perhaps not all, but many of you have had some kind of a history in and around religion. Is that fair? And what's interesting is that many of the messengers that the masters have approached over time, over the last 150 years, have been quite religious, but then kind of extricated themselves from the constraints of religion and sort of parked themselves in the field of a master and started to listen to what the master had to say, which always reinforces the golden thread of truth which underlies all great religions. Many, if not most of the religions have now been completely hijacked, and that is coming to light as well. But part of this, and many lifetimes spent in religion, is you've developed kind of a distaste for it. Is that fair? And there is culturally right now, there is a bit of a distaste for religion because religion relied on an old mindset of believing. Now the paradox of this, for those of you who choose to wake up, the paradox of believing a belief system, whether it's Christianity or Judaism or Islam, it doesn't matter. But having a belief system, when you start to develop, you start to realize many of these belief systems have real gaps in them, contradictions, da-da-da-da-da-da-da, right? But the paradox of being part of, historically, whether it's this life or a past life, having a belief system is that you have the attribute of faith. And having the attribute of faith, that's a wonderful attribute. It's a great asset to have. And now we're merely redirecting that mindset of your faith to being able to have the faith in your higher self. And now we're putting together tools in order for you to discover your higher self through meditation, study, and service. And we're putting that together in a way where you can serve yourself best by learning how to connect to your real self. And when you have even historic past lives in the church, you realize that the church was very race-six, had a lot of stuff to do with faith, and now we're stepping into this era that we call the Aquarian Age, which is the era of knowing. And what we want to do is allow you to do your push-ups so that you know your higher self. You know and understand the modality of self-realization. And that's what we're here to do. Okay? So what does this say? Aaron, read that, please.
Meditation should produce transcendent experiences.
So, does it?
Occasionally.
Sometimes it does. What does your ego want?
All the time.
Absolutely. Fireworks all the time. It wants ego tangible evidence. tangible evidence defined by the ego, as opposed to that subtle expression of something of your divinity. Okay? Now, DB talks about superconscious experience kind of as a fish out of water. Okay? And there is, in essence, and many of you have experienced it, I suspect, there is a brilliance to it that transcends description. And it's very hard to describe. Okay? And so consequently, all the great authors and poets of the past have tried to describe it, but as Emerson said, their words did not do it an august sense, right? So as profane as words are in order to describe it, a superconscious experience is beyond description. Okay? And we coined it some time ago as transcendiary. Okay? And the aspect that we call into transcendent and incendiary is that you are being initiated by what element? This is an initiation by fire, isn't it? An initiation by fire ain't fun for certain aspects of you. The Maya, the glamour, the illusion. Okay? Okay. What if you had an owner's manual? What do you think, Ian? What would happen if you had an owner's manual? You throw it in the glove box and never look at it? Say that again?
Most of us would never read it.
Most of us would never read it. Isn't that interesting? And that's not unfair. That's probably a very valid observation. I have an owner's manual for my car. I doubt that I've had it open 5 times in however many, decade and a half I've had it, right?
Or we'd only look at it when we're totally stuck.
As Aaron just pointed out, we only look at it when we're totally stuck. Who can say in every aspect of their life they're not stuck? Who is stuck somewhere? Who are having challenges? Who wears, the dark night of the soul? That resonates. That goes through you. That rings bells. That goes, that's an expression of something that I get. Okay. And now, one of the challenges, and this brings us back to the river and the rope, right? We all remember the river and the rope story, and that is the path has been laid. The road's laid. The path is laid. The example has been set. But it's only by your own volition and your own hand that you get to do it. Okay? So, and I say this often in jest, I don't mean to suggest that it will happen, but if every day at 9 o'clock you had to go to your mailbox and sure enough, at 9 o'clock, not at 9:01, not at 9 minutes and 30 seconds, but at 9 o'clock, a gold coin showed up, how diligent would you be going to the mailbox at 9 o'clock every morning? Absolutely, right?
Until I had so many gold coins, I didn't know what to do with them all.
Till you had so many gold coins there you go. Well, maybe you could start to give them away.
No kidding, I would say that would not be a problem. In that
Yes.
case, that would not be enough.
Well, so part of the venue is this. Like we've just started to talk about logarithmic growth. Okay? One of the things that we get a bit stuck in is we get stuck in our packaging. And your true essence, if you will, is a state of consciousness that cannot be encumbered or limited by your packages. Okay? And when you experience that, when you have that sense of the true sense of how brilliant you are, that aha moment, that epiphany as we speak to it, you go, oh, my purpose here is just to straighten out the package so I can come and go from it consciously and at will. Never again will it bind me or limit my freedom. Wow, and that was given to us by the masters as well, wasn't it? So all you're starting to see as the semesters go on and as we start to do this work and as the higher ups start to integrate, they start to externalize themselves, we start to see and become more aware of the divine design. And what a great place to be. in this divine design, in spite of our shortcomings of our packaging. Okay? In spite of our shortcomings of our packaging.